my youth, actually back to my childhood, because Ella Wheeler Wilcox was one of my mother's favorite poets. And I don't recall her actually teaching me any of Ella Wheeler Wilcox's poems, but I do remember her reciting them. And I did just a little bit of research on the internet about Ella Wheeler Wilcox, and it said that her writings were designed for self-reflection. And so my feeling is that that was my mother's way of reflecting, going inward, and being present to what Spirit was revealing through her. And it was really her private time and her gift to herself. Last week, we launched our theme for the month of October, Cosmic Connections. And we explored the idea, just like me, we're each a reflection of the infinite self. Knowing that we are a reflection of the infinite self, we move towards an understanding that everyone around us reflects back to us ourselves. It's like looking in a mirror and seeing that reflection. And just like me, everyone is doing the best they can with what they have in the time that they have. And we find that when we have compassion for ourselves, realizing that we're doing the best that we can, then we transfer that compassion to those around us. This week, we shift our consideration in the cosmic connection to we are inseparable from God. We are inseparable from God. Recognizing that the one bridge that links all of life together is that divine intelligence that is in back of all things. It is our nature to be in community, to feel connected, and to establish a sense of belonging. And so we ask the question, what can we do to release those barriers of being connected? And I think that's a relevant question for this time that we find ourselves in, this time of COVID-19. What are those barriers that we can release to being connected? First of all, we can get on the love train. We can do that anytime, any place, and anywhere. And through an understanding of our spiritual identity as one with Spirit, we understand that our connection to each other is often through that, our identity as one with Spirit. And that does not require that we do anything. It is actually a state of being. Brené Brown shares this with us. Spirituality is recognizing and celebrating that we are inextricably connected to each other by a power greater than all of us, and that our connection to that power and to one another is grounded in love and compassion. And love and compassion was another word that emerged through our visioning yesterday. So we're really on to something. We're really feeling this vibration, this energy of love and compassion, which this center so stands for and has done so for many years here on the Monterey Peninsula. And now we're expanding that love out via technology. So there's something good that has come out of the COVID-19 experience. We really get to be non-local in our expression of our love. God is where we are. God is who we are, no matter what. There's no beginning and there's no ending. I remember several years ago, I was in a meeting. Actually, it was a preparation for a memorial that I was in a meeting with Dr. Michael Beckwith and some members of the family he was officiating the service for. And in that conversation, Dr. Michael said, there is no ending, there is no beginning. There is no pre-life and there is no afterlife. That this life is one continuous cosmic presence that is around us. And Holmes identifies that and refers to that in the Science Mind textbook. by saying there is no beginning and there is no ending. Each one of us is God showing up just as we are. God showing up just as we are, meaning that we don't have to change anything about ourselves. We just be the expression of God that we are. We be the love and the compassion and the joy and the beauty of what God is that is reflecting through us out into the world. This divine intelligence continues to flow through us no matter what is happening in our lives, whether it is grief or sorrow or even our happy times. God is always there. Now, there are times when we feel that God may have left us, in those times of deep grief, in those times of sorrow, in those times of disappointment. Or there may be experiences where we feel that our behavior, in the traditional church, they use the term sin. In our teaching, we identify it as missing the mark. We've made a mistake. And we feel that maybe the gravity of the mistake has separated us from God. But I've got good news for you this morning. God has never left. God has never went anywhere. God is who we are. God is therefore we are, and we are never separated. God is everywhere in us at all times. And from our Science of Mind textbook, in the section titled Freedom from Bondage, Dr. Holmes writes, "We are an infinite mind. An infinite mind is also in us. It is by this mind that we think. This mind is eternal, therefore we are eternal. This mind is complete, therefore we are spiritually complete, though we do not appear to be so." And that's where we are reminded to look beyond appearances, look beyond the appearance of anything that may be separating us from that indwelling presence that is a part of who we are, and know that we are spiritually complete. And the reference for this is page 108, paragraph 3 in our Science of Mind textbook. Through our divine spirituality, spiritual identity as one with the divine, we realize we are never alone. When we embrace all that we are, we become aware that we are not walking this spiritual journey alone. And this reminds me of the poem that we see frequently, and I believe the title of it is Footsteps. It's either Footsteps or Footprints. Some of you may be familiar with it, but it's the illustration of someone walking along the beach, and at points along the way there are two sets of footprints, and there are other points along the way where there's only one set of footprints. And the person is having this conversation with God and is saying, where were you in those times where there was only one set of footprints? And the response from God was, I was holding you. I was caring for you. And so we know that as we walk along this journey, we are never alone. And this allows us to release our sense of separation from spirit and from each other. We realize that our awakening to this oneness with spirit is connected to everyone else's awakening. And it takes each and every one of us to create wholeness and oneness. We're in this together. We're in this partnership together. It is these times of connections that we truly feel love and compassion surrounding us. It is what Dr. Holmes identifies in the textbook in the section Finding the Christ. And this is what he writes. And I've adapted the language to be inclusive language. No man or woman ever walks life's road alone. There is ever another who walks with us. This is the life of the inner self, the underlying reality, which is the personality, but poorly emulates it. Let us learn to be still and let the truth speak through us. to be still and know that inner light shines. This is from The Invisible Whole, page 369, paragraph 1. Be still and know. What a gentle reminder. Sometimes we say that more out of rote, and yet it's a very powerful way of being. To be still and know, to be still, to go within and listen to that still small voice within, because it is ever guiding us. And we are staying open to connections by recognizing the good and the divine intelligence, which keeps us inextricably connected to God, to ourselves, and to our spiritual community. In trusting in ourselves and God, we open our hearts and our souls and our minds to receive love, to receive compassion, and to receive all of the good that is coming to us. The good news here is that we are never denied any good thing. The scripture says that the kingdom is ours, and is that kingdom of consciousness, that kingdom of knowing that the goodness of God is always present to us. All we are required to do is just be open and receive it. It is in this openness that we truly feel the divine connection to the divine intelligence. And as we open and receive, we also release any barriers to our old stories that we have told ourselves about not being connected to anyone or anything. You know, it is in the being still, it is in being open. There's an expression says that a closed hand receives nothing. And so if we remain closed, if we remain tight-fisted, we block that good that is coming to us. Merely opening our hands and looking up. Everyone just look up. Wherever you are, just look up with open hands and feel the excitement, feel the joy of receiving that gift from looking up. Feel that experience, feel that experience. And then in the general summary of our Science Mind textbook is this reminder: if at times we doubt our ability to use the law, we should again remind ourselves that it is not I, but the Spirit of the Father in me that doeth the work. This will straighten our thought and place us again on the road of faith and understanding. And the reference for this is page 401, paragraph 4 in our Science Mind textbook. And then from the scriptures, this is from the Aramaic Bible in plain English, 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 13. For we are baptized, and baptism is the spiritual cleansing of the mind. It is the first step to the realization of truth. For we also are baptized by the one Spirit into the one body. Whether Jew or Aramean or servants or free men, we are all made to drink of the one Spirit. We're all connected to the one. And so, being the good teacher that I am, I have a call to action for you. And that is, if you have not already registered, please register to vote and encourage your family and your friends and your coworkers to do the same. And this Thursday, October the 15th, I invite you to our second of 3 discussion series related to the Centers for Spiritual Living voting guide. And we will consider the question this week: before submitting my ballot, am I at peace with my decisions? And I invite you to visit our newsletter for the Zoom ID and the link, the Zoom ID and link to the discussion session. So it is this Thursday, 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. And we will be considering the question: before submitting my ballot, Am I at peace with my decisions? And remember, we are looking at the values, the global vision for our centers for spiritual living, which is quite often summarized as a world that works for everyone. And we are asking ourselves the question, are my values, are my personal values in alignment with the values of CSL? And then overlaying these values onto the ballots, the candidates, as well as the various propositions. We ask, are these in alignment? Are the views and the positions of the candidates, and are the views and the positions of the various ballot measures in alignment with my values, the values of CSL? Are they in alignment with spiritual principles that do create a world and a community that works for everyone? So I look forward to seeing you on the call on Thursday at 6:30 p.m. And in conclusion this morning, I just remind us that we are deeply experiencing, embodying, and knowing our inextricable, that word is a challenge for me, connection with spirit, our oneness with spirit. We're one with God. Forget that big word. As we deeply experience, embody, and know our connection to the one, the living spirit, we then discover our connection to each other through that which we can access. And that connection is through love and compassion for ourselves and love and compassion for one another. And Mother Teresa offers us this reminder. If we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. If we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. Let us connect now in prayer. And I invite you to, again, just allow your vision to go upward and to be uplifted in this connection with our spiritual mind treatment. And we go to that inner space where we know that the spirit and the essence of the living one, that which is known by many names and is also beyond all names, that one that is the eternal creative intelligence, that one that I live, move, and have my being through, and that one that lives through and has its being in everyone that has joined us this morning. And how good it is to know that this eternal life, this eternal beingness, this eternal givingness of life from the Spirit to all beings is true for everyone, everywhere, at all times. And so I bless our time together this morning. I bless the words that have been spoken. I bless the music. I bless the prayers. I bless the sharing. I bless each one who is a part of this experience, lifting each one into that light of love, that light of compassion, that light of consciousness, knowing that each prayer request that we hold in our hearts is answered in love. It is answered with compassion. And the answer is always yes and amen. This is the way the Spirit works. We are lifted in love. And the answer is always yes. I bless our centers for spiritual living. I bless other places where people are gathering, experiencing the oneness of all life, recognizing that there are many roads that lead to the source of all that there is. And so often we may travel parallel roads and often we may intersect. And so at those points of intersection, may we know that we are one with one another. And I'm reminded of my childhood as I was walking to my church of choice, and a fellow neighbor was walking to their church of choice. And there were points along the way where we walked literally hand in hand, recognizing that there is only one truth. And my neighbor and friend chose the road of Catholicism. I chose the road of Baptist. And yet we walked together this road of spiritual awakening on this spiritual journey together. And so as we continue to walk in love and compassion, I know that everything unfolds for us in divine, right, and perfect order. And so for this and for so much more, I give great thanks. Just releasing this word, releasing this time into the law, which always says yes, and just allowing it to be so. And we affirm this by saying, and so it is.
And so it is.
And now it is time for our gracious giving. We have a slide now with our affirmation statement. And I invite you to, we will say that together. Yeah, our affirmation of abundance. I recognize the presence of God within as the source of my abundance. Out of my abundance consciousness flows everything I could desire in life. With gratitude and thanksgiving, I now participate in the flow of uninterrupted abundance. I release this visible substance, an outer symbol of my inner supply, into the physical world. This prosperous experience is evidence of my abundance consciousness. Thank you for your commitment to our spiritual center. And there are ways for you to share in the law of circulation. You may mail a check to our center at 400 West Franklin Street, or you may go to our website, which is a secure website, and click on the donate button. And there are also links on that screen to sign up for our weekly newsletter. And for those of us who are tech savvy, we can also text GIVE to 831-246-9694. And there's also an option to click on the link to set up your debit or bank information to donate on a one-time or at regular intervals. Thank you for the way that you lovingly support this spiritual community, and that allows us to reach out into the larger community and develop programs and services that bring life to all of those who are around us. And now we have another musical selection. This also emerged out of the visioning yesterday, and it is The Prayer. And this one is by Donna McClurkin and Yolanda Adams, and I believe you will like this rendition. Okay, I'm saying goodbye to our Facebook friends. We are broadcasting Facebook Live, so this is goodbye. See you next week to Facebook. Our Zoom families remain on.